Warning. This is not a casual message. This is not a coincidence. Archangel Michael says your name was just removed from a list of destruction. Let that settle in your spirit for a moment. Your name was written down. It was scheduled. It was marked. And if a single prayer had not risen at the exact appointed second, the outcome could have been very different. You are listening to this right now because heaven intervened. Because something shifted. Because a verdict that once stood against you has been overturned. There are moments in the spirit realm that never make headlines on earth. Battles rage without sound. Decisions are debated in realms your natural eyes cannot see. And recently, your name was spoken in one of those moments. A list existed. Not symbolic. Not imaginary. A spiritual record of assignments, setbacks, collapse, and premature endings. A list of destruction. And your name appeared there. You may be thinking, why would my name be on such a list? That question alone reveals how unaware we can be of the intensity surrounding our destiny. You carry something valuable. You carry potential that threatens darkness. You carry purpose that disrupts long-standing plans of defeat. And whenever purpose rises, opposition takes notice. Whenever destiny begins to unfold, resistance forms. This was not random. It was targeted. The list was not about minor inconvenience. It was about interruption, derailment, silencing. It was about cutting short what heaven designed to flourish. And yet, before the assignment could manifest in the physical realm, something happened. A movement, a command, a divine interruption. Archangel Michael stepped forward. There are ranks in the spirit realm. There is order. There is authority. And when destruction attempts to cross certain boundaries, heaven responds with precision. Michael is not sent for small matters. He is dispatched in moments of covenant defense, in times when divine promises are being contested. The fact that he speaks now about your name being removed reveals the seriousness of what was unfolding. Your name was reviewed. Your destiny was examined. Your life was weighed against the accusations rising against it. And then, because of one single prayer, the outcome changed. You were closer to a breaking point than you realized. Some of you felt it. The unusual pressure. The sudden heaviness. The unexplainable fatigue. The sense that something was trying to close in around your progress. Doors that almost shut. Conversations that almost went differently. Decisions that nearly turned against you. Those were not coincidences. They were tremors from a larger spiritual movement. But at the exact moment the assignment sought to advance, a voice called your name in prayer, and heaven listened. Understand this clearly. Destruction does not get the final word when intercession speaks. The list may have been written, but it was not sealed. The enemy may have proposed, but heaven disposes. And when a righteous appeal rises, especially at the appointed time, it activates divine review. Your removal from that list was not quiet. It was official. Archangel Michael describes it as a cancellation order issued with authority. Your name was struck out, erased from the column of destruction, transferred out of imminent danger. What was once approved was suddenly denied. What was once progressing was suddenly halted. The spiritual momentum shifted in your favor. Why are you being told this now? Because awareness changes posture. When you realize you were preserved, you begin to walk differently. When you understand that something tried and failed, you stop underestimating your value. And when you learn that heaven defended you without your knowledge, gratitude replaces fear. This message is not meant to scare you. It is meant to awaken you. There are seasons when we move through life unaware of how close we came to loss. We complain about delays, not realizing those delays were protection. We question detours, not realizing they kept us from collision. You may have felt frustrated recently. You may have wondered why certain plans stalled or why certain relationships shifted unexpectedly. But what if those shifts were part of the removal process? What if heaven was rearranging events to ensure the destruction assigned to you could not land? The timing of this revelation is intentional. You are entering a new phase. And before you step into it fully, you must know that you were almost counted out, but you were not abandoned. You were almost targeted successfully, but you were defended. The list existed, but it does not control your future anymore. Something powerful is unfolding. The fact that you survived what you didn't even see tells you something profound. Your life is not common. Your breath is not accidental. Your days are not random extensions of time. They are preserved chapters, protected pages in a story still being written. Archangel Michael does not announce removals lightly. When he speaks of a name being taken off a list of destruction, it means heaven has chosen preservation over loss, purpose over interruption, destiny over defeat. And here you are, alive, listening, still standing. That alone is evidence. But this is only the beginning of the revelation. Because one question remains: who prayed the single prayer that shifted everything? Who carried the authority to speak your name at the exact moment destruction was being considered? The answer to that question will change how you see your past, your relationships, and even yourself. What makes this even more overwhelming is that while your name was being discussed in the spirit realm, you were simply living your life. You were going to work. You were having conversations. You were making plans. You were fighting small battles in your thoughts, unaware that a much greater battle was unfolding behind the veil. The most dangerous conflicts are often the ones you never see. And this was one of them. There was opposition assigned to your destiny long before you felt the pressure. Not because you failed, not because you were weak, but because you are marked for impact. There is something about your future that carries weight. Something about your calling that threatened long-standing spiritual resistance. Darkness does not mobilize against what is insignificant. It studies, it observes, and it attacks what carries promise. You may have noticed unusual patterns recently. Sudden discouragement without clear cause. Opportunities that almost materialized, but dissolved at the last moment. Tension appearing in places that once felt stable. These were not random inconveniences. They were surface-level ripples of a deeper confrontation. There was an accusation attempting to gain traction, a case trying to be built, a narrative forming that suggested your progress should be stopped. In the unseen realm, arguments were presented against your advancement. Words like unworthy, unprepared, and disqualified may have been whispered in the atmosphere around your assignment. The goal was simple. If destruction could not strike you suddenly, then discouragement would slowly weaken you. If you could be convinced to withdraw voluntarily, the list would not even need to complete its work. But here is what the enemy underestimated. Your destiny is not self-created. It is heaven-designed. When purpose is written by God, it cannot be erased by opposition alone. It may be contested. It may be delayed. It may be challenged. But it cannot be destroyed without divine permission. And in your case, permission was not granted. The battle intensified because you are approaching something significant. There is a shift near you, a door about to open, a level of clarity and influence that would disrupt cycles that have lingered too long. A list of destruction was an attempt to prevent that shift from happening. If your confidence could collapse, if your strength could be drained, if your hope could be dimmed, then your movement forward would stall. Have you felt unusually tired even after resting? Have you questioned yourself more than usual? Have you felt moments where you wondered if stepping back would be easier than pressing forward? Those were not merely emotional fluctuations. They were part of the pressure campaign. But while the pressure increased, so did the defense. What you did not see was the counter-response in the heavens. While accusations were being voiced, intercession was rising. While strategies were being formed against you, protection was being positioned around you. The battle was real, but so was the covering. And here is something crucial. The intensity of the attack reveals the value of what you carry. Ordinary paths do not provoke extraordinary resistance. The reason destruction was considered is because your future holds influence. Your voice carries weight. Your obedience will unlock something larger than you realize. This is why you cannot afford to dismiss this message. You are not simply having a rough season. You were walking through a targeted moment. And you came through it because something higher intervened. A narrative shifted. The accusation lost power. The list lost authority over your name. Right now, I want you to pause and recognize something deeply personal. You are still here. Despite what tried to form. Despite what tried to align against you. Despite the subtle war you never consciously fought. You are still standing. That is not luck. That is not coincidence. That is divine interruption. And if this message is resonating with you, if something inside you recognizes that you have been preserved, then this is your moment to respond. Like this video as a declaration that you acknowledge the protection over your life. Subscribe to this channel if you believe you are entering a new season of awareness and spiritual authority. Comment I receive below as a prophetic alignment with the cancellation that has already taken place. And share this message with someone who may not realize that they, too, survived something unseen. When you engage, you are not just interacting with content, you are amplifying a warning and a testimony that could awaken someone else. The battle you never saw did not end in your defeat. It ended in your defense. But the question grows stronger now. If opposition was so organized, if destruction was so close to being executed, then who had the authority to shift it? Who spoke with such clarity and conviction that heaven responded immediately? Who called your name at the exact second it needed to be called? The answer is closer than you think. In the middle of that unseen battle, when arguments were being formed and pressure was increasing around your destiny, something simple yet unstoppable rose into the heavens. A single prayer. Not a crowd. Not a stadium. Not a viral moment. Just one voice. One sincere cry. One direct appeal that carried your name before the throne of God. And that was enough. Heaven does not measure prayer by volume. It measures it by alignment. It measures it by faith. It measures it by covenant. And at the exact second destruction was attempting to finalize its assignment, that one prayer pierced through every layer of accusation and reached the ear of the Almighty. What could have progressed quietly was suddenly interrupted loudly in the Spirit. You must understand this deeply. The shift did not happen because the opposition grew tired. It happened because intercession became louder than accusation. Somewhere, someone spoke your name with authority. They may not have known the full details of what was forming against you. They may not have seen the list, but they felt a burden. They felt a stirring. They felt an urgency they could not ignore. And instead of dismissing it, they obeyed it. They stopped what they were doing. They bowed their head. They lifted their voice. And they prayed. It may have been a short prayer. It may have been whispered. It may have even been prayed through tears. But it was precise. It was timely. And it was accepted. In the courts of heaven, timing matters. There are moments when intervention must be immediate. And this was one of those moments. The prayer acted like a legal appeal and challenged the movement of destruction. It presented covenant evidence. It reminded heaven of promises spoken over your life long ago. And because it was righteous, because it was aligned, because it carried faith, it shifted the outcome. The list that once held your name was reviewed again. The assignment that once seemed ready to move forward was paused. The momentum of destruction was reversed. Not because you fought harder, not because you finally said the perfect words, but because someone stood in the gap for you when you did not even know you needed it. This is the mystery of intercession. Sometimes we are preserved by prayers we never heard. Think about that. There are blessings in your life that came from words spoken in secret. There are dangers you avoided because someone felt compelled to call your name before God. There are storms that weakened before reaching you because a prayer intercepted them. This single prayer was not random. It was targeted. Imagine you protecting and declared your purpose. It asked for divine covering. It called for cancellation of hidden assignments. And when those words rose, they did not fall to the ground. Archangel Michael confirms that it was at that precise moment that the command was given. Remove the name. The atmosphere shifted. The authority of destruction weakened. The list was altered. What once seemed inevitable became impossible. You may be wondering why you felt a sudden lightness recently. Why something that seemed heavy began to lift without explanation. Why clarity returned after confusion. Why a door that almost closed remained slightly open. That was the aftershock of a prayer being answered. And here is what makes this even more powerful. The one who prayed may not even realize the magnitude of what they stopped. They may think they were simply being faithful. They may think they were just following a gentle nudge. But in reality, their obedience altered the trajectory of your life. Never underestimate the power of one-line prayer. In a world obsessed with numbers and noise, heaven still responds to sincerity. One prayer can silence 1,000 accusations. One prayer can override a destructive decree. One prayer can rewrite a spiritual record. But this revelation is not only about gratitude, it is about awakening. Because if one prayer could shift that much, imagine what consistent intercession can build around your future. Imagine what happens when prayer becomes your lifestyle, not just your emergency response. The fact that you were saved by a single prayer means your life carries weight. It means your story is not finished. It means your assignment is still active. And it means heaven is invested in your continuation. Now pause with me for a moment. If this message resonates in your spirit, if you sense that something truly was diverted from your path, then respond in faith. Type "I am covered" in the comments. Lesson code 144 is now activated. As you declare it, you are acknowledging the shield that was placed around you. But do not let this moment pass casually, because what comes next will reveal something even more personal. The identity of the one who prayed will change how you see your relationships and your past forever. You will be glad you are still listening when that revelation unfolds. When a single prayer can remove your name from destruction, imagine what happens when many join this mission of light. This channel exists so voices of warning and protection can reach souls before it is too late. When you give through Super Thanks, membership, or PayPal, you are not supporting a platform, you are sowing into a harvest of rescued destinies. The Lord says, "Those who sow in tears shall reap in joy," and today He speaks that promise over you personally. I believe this word must reach more people, and I choose to be part of that move. Your seed becomes oil in the lamp, fire on the altar, and bread for the hungry heart scrolling in silence. Do not hesitate when heaven nudges you. Respond as an act of obedience. As you give, may open heavens follow you, and may protection surround your household. Step into this prophetic act now and release your seed. And now we come to a question that carries weight in your spirit. Who had the authority to pray a prayer powerful enough to remove your name from a list of destruction? Because not every prayer carries the same spiritual force. Not every voice moves courts in heaven with the same impact. There are prayers spoken out of routine, and there are prayers spoken out of covenant. There are words released casually, and there are words backed by relationship, sacrifice, obedience, and alignment with God's will. The prayer that shifted your outcome was not random noise in the atmosphere. It was not wishful thinking. It was not vague hope. It carried authority. Authority in the spirit realm does not come from volume. It does not come from titles. It does not come from public recognition. It comes from intimacy with God. It comes from consistency. It comes from a life that has been tested, refined, and surrendered. The one who prayed for you had standing. When they spoke your name, heaven recognized their voice. This person has history with God. They have cried before. They have believed when others doubted. They have held onto promises when circumstances suggested letting go. Their prayers are not empty words. They are seeds planted over years of faithfulness. And when such a person feels an urgency to intercede, heaven listens carefully. There are spiritual ranks not only among angels but among believers. Some have built altars of prayer over decades. Some have walked through fire and come out purified, not bitter. Some have endured loss yet remained faithful, and their endurance has given weight to their words. The one who prayed for you stands in that category. Perhaps it is someone older, someone who has been quietly covering you for years, a mother who whispers your name before sleeping, a grandmother who still calls on God with unwavering faith, a mentor who may not even tell you how often they intercede on your behalf. Or perhaps it is someone unexpected, a friend who felt a sudden burden and could not shake it. It might even be someone you have underestimated. You see, authority often hides in humility. The person who prayed may not have a large platform. They may not speak eloquently. They may not even consider themselves spiritually strong. But heaven does not evaluate by appearance. Heaven evaluates by heart posture. When they prayed for you, they were not trying to impress anyone. They were responding to a divine prompting. Something in your spirit stirred, a restlessness, a concern they could not explain logically, and instead of ignoring it, they acted on it. That obedience activated protection. There are moments when God searches for someone willing to stand in the gap, not for themselves but for another. In that moment, this person became your shield bearer. Your voice rose where yours was silent. Your faith spoke where yours may have been weary. Their conviction stood firm while your awareness was limited. This is why their prayer carried authority. It was selfless. Selfless prayers move heaven differently. The spiritual realm recognizes when someone is not praying out of fear, pride, or control, but out of love and alignment with God's heart. And love, when combined with faith, becomes a powerful force. There is another layer to this revelation. The authority behind that prayer was not just built on personal devotion. It was connected to covenant. There is a spiritual connection between you and the one who prayed. A bond that may be familial, relational, or even spiritual. That bond gave them legal access to speak on your behalf. In the unseen realm, access matters. You cannot always speak into every situation with the same authority. But when covenant exists, when relationship is established, when love is genuine, doors open. The one who prayed for you had access to your name. When they spoke it, it was not foreign in the courts of heaven. It was recognized. It was validated and carrying relational weight. And here is something that may humble you deeply. They may have been praying for you long before this specific moment. Seeds of protection may have been planted years ago. Words of blessing may have been spoken over you in seasons you barely remember. Covering may have surrounded you without your knowledge. The recent single prayer that removed your name from destruction was not isolated, and with the culmination of a history of intercession. You were not defended by accident. You were defended by relationship. And now the question shifts from curiosity to responsibility. If someone has carried you in prayer with that level of faithfulness, how will you honor that covering? How will you steward the preservation that was granted to you? How will you walk knowing that your life was defended at a cost of someone else's tears and persistence? This revelation is not meant to create pressure. It is meant to create awareness. You are connected to someone whose prayers matter deeply in the spirit realm. And whether you know exactly who it is yet or not, you are not walking alone. You have been carried. You have been remembered. You have been lifted before God in moments when you did not even realize you were vulnerable. And this is only part of the story. Because beyond the authority of the one who prayed lies something even greater, a covenant spoken over your life long before this battle began. Before there was ever a list of destruction with your name on it, there was another record written in heaven. Before opposition studied your destiny, before accusations attempted to rise, before the unseen battle intensified, there was a covenant spoken over your life. And that covenant is the real reason your name could not remain on that list. You were not preserved by chance. You were preserved by promise. There are covenants that begin before we take our first breath. Words spoken by God over families. Declarations released in seasons of faithfulness. Agreements formed in moments of surrender. These covenants do not expire when circumstances change. They do not dissolve when challenges arise. They remain active, waiting for their appointed fulfillment. Somewhere in your lineage, someone made a decision that affected you. Someone prayed, "Lord, let my children serve you." Someone asked for protection over generations not yet born. Someone stood in faith and declared that their household would belong to God. And heaven recorded that prayer. You may not even know the full spiritual history of your family. You may not know who fasted, who cried out, who sacrificed, who made vows in private rooms. But heaven knows. And when your name appeared on a list of destruction, those covenantal prayers were remembered. Covenant is stronger than accusation. When destruction attempted to justify its claim over your life, covenant responded with evidence. Evidence of promises. Evidence of dedication. Evidence of seeds planted long ago that were still alive in the Spirit. And because God is faithful to His covenants, your name could not remain where it did not belong. You have felt at times like you were fighting battles that seemed older than you. Patterns that predated your choices. Pressures that felt inherited. But here is the revelation. If struggles can travel through generations, so can blessings. If cycles of difficulty can attempt to repeat, so can cycles of favor. And in your case, favor spoke louder. The hidden covenant over your life created a boundary. Destruction may have approached, but it could not cross that line permanently. The line was drawn by promise. There are moments when God honors prayers spoken decades earlier. Moments when He says, because of what was asked before, I will act now. Your preservation is tied to that kind of faithfulness. You may wonder why certain dangers missed you narrowly in the past, why certain outcomes that seem statistically likely never materialized, why certain mistakes did not destroy you completely. Covenant. It was not your perfection that shielded you. It was promise. This does not mean you will never face difficulty. It does not mean life will be free from resistance. But it does mean that destruction does not have the final authority over you. There is a spiritual seal that has been placed on your destiny. That seal was activated again when the single prayer rose on your behalf. Covenants and intercession work together. One establishes the promise. The other enforces it in critical moments. When the prayer was spoken for you, it was not standing alone. It stood on the foundation of covenant already in place. And this is why the removal of your name was not debated for long. There was already precedent in heaven. There were already promises recorded. There was already intention declared over your existence. You are not an accident navigating random outcomes. You are a covenant carrier. Even if you have doubted, even if you have wondered, even if you have questioned your worth or your calling, covenant is not erased by temporary confusion. It remains steady, waiting for alignment. There are seasons when we live beneath the awareness of what covers us. We move anxiously, unaware that we are protected. We shrink back, unaware that we are chosen. But moments like this awaken us. Your life is tied to something larger than your current circumstances. The hidden covenant over you explains why destruction was resisted so strongly. It explains why intercession rose so urgently. It explains why Archangel Michael announced the removal with such authority. Heaven was not scrambling. Heaven was enforcing a promise. And here is something deeply personal. Covenant also implies calling. You are preserved for a reason. Promises are not sustained without purpose. If God has defended your name, it is because your name is attached to an assignment. There is something you are meant to build, something you are meant to speak, someone you are meant to influence. Preservation is not passive. It is preparation. The enemy saw potential and tried to stop it. Covenant saw promise and refused to allow it. Now the awareness shifts to you. Knowing that you are covered by covenant changes how you walk. It changes how you pray. It changes how you endure. You are not striving to create favor. You are responding to favor already established. A list of destruction was temporary. The covenant over your life is eternal. And yet, even with covenant in place, destruction was still bold enough to attempt its move. That raises another question. If promise covered you, why was there still an assignment against you? Why did opposition dare to approach at all? The answer reveals something powerful about what you carry. If there was already a covenant over your life, if promises were recorded in heaven before you were born, then why would destruction even attempt to come near you? Why would your name ever appear on such a list in the first place? The answer is not weakness. It is not failure. It is not because you were forgotten. It is because you are dangerous to darkness. Destruction is rarely assigned to the insignificant. It is assigned to the impactful. It targets potential. It studies calling. It observes growth. When your life begins to move toward purpose, resistance intensifies. When you start stepping into clarity, confusion tries to surround you. When you approach breakthrough, opposition tries to create breakdown. You were not randomly selected. You were strategically targeted. There is something about your future that threatens long-standing patterns. You are positioned to break cycles that have controlled generations. You are wired to think differently, to move differently, to believe differently. And when someone is destined to disrupt unhealthy systems, spiritually, emotionally, even generationally, there is often backlash. Destruction was assigned because of what you carry. You may not fully see it yet. You may not feel extraordinary. You may even question your consistency or your readiness. But heaven measures potential differently than people do. What feels small to you may be monumental in the spiritual realm. There is a calling attached to your obedience. A ripple effect attached to your faithfulness. A chain reaction attached to you, yes. If you walk fully in alignment, others will follow. If you break certain habits, others will gain courage. If you choose healing, others will discover it is possible. And that kind of influence is threatening to darkness. The assignment against you was not just about stopping you. It was about preventing the impact that flows through you. Have you ever wondered why certain battles in your life felt disproportionate? Why minor steps forward sometimes triggered major resistance? Why seasons of growth were often followed by unexpected challenges? It is because movement in your life creates spiritual attention. The enemy does not waste resources attacking what poses no future problem. The intensity of the pressure reveals the magnitude of the promise. There is also another dimension to this assignment: jealousy in the spirit realm. When favor rests on someone, it becomes visible, not always to human eyes, but to unseen forces. When grace covers you, when protection surrounds you, when opportunities align unexpectedly, it signals that something significant is unfolding. And jealousy seeks to interrupt favor. You may have experienced moments where things seemed to shift suddenly without logical explanation. Relationships changed support turned into subtle opposition. Momentum slowed unexpectedly. These moments were not always natural. Some were reactions to the favor increasing over your life. But here is what destruction underestimated: favor backed by covenant cannot be easily dismantled. The assignment was bold, but it was not sovereign. It was strategic, but it was not ultimate. It attempted to position itself as final, but it did not have final authority. There is also a deeper reason destruction tried to approach you. You are entering a season of exposure, not negative exposure, but visibility. What hath been cultivated privately is preparing to manifest publicly. Growth that has been internal is preparing to become external, and visibility changes the level of warfare. When you are hidden, opposition watches. When you begin to emerge, opposition reacts. The list of destruction was an attempt to silence you before you became undeniable, to weaken you before your influence expanded, to discourage you before your clarity solidified. But it failed, and that failure speaks loudly. It means your assignment is still intact. It means your movement forward is still authorized. It means that even though destruction was assigned, it was not permitted to succeed. There is something else you must understand. Sometimes destruction is assigned not to eliminate you physically, but to destroy your confidence, your discipline, your faith, or your consistency. If your belief can be shaken, your impact can be minimized. If your courage can be reduced, your obedience can be delayed. Have you battled self-doubt recently? Have you wrestled with thoughts of stepping back from what you know you are called to do? Have you felt the temptation to settle for less than what you once envisioned? That was part of the strategy. Because if you choose to shrink, the assignment does not need to strike. But you did not shrink completely. Even in moments of uncertainty, you kept moving. Even in moments of heaviness, you kept breathing. Even in moments of confusion, something inside you refused to quit entirely. That resilience is evidence of purpose. Destruction was assigned because your existence carries disruption. Your obedience threatens stagnation. Your growth challenges limitation. And your future holds influence. The presence of attack is confirmation of value. Do not interpret resistance as proof that you are off track. Sometimes it is proof that you are dangerously close to breakthrough. Sometimes it is confirmation that your next level carries weight. The assignment against you was real, but so is your preservation. And now that you understand why destruction was bold enough to approach, the next revelation becomes even more powerful. Because there was a specific moment when the tide turned completely. A decisive intervention. A heavenly command that shifted everything permanently. There are turning points in the spirit realm that redefine everything. Moments when tension reaches its peak, when opposing forces appear locked in confrontation, and when the outcome seems suspended in a fragile balance. Your life reached one of those moments. The assignment had been discussed. The pressure had intensified. The list had been written. And then, at the precise second when destruction attempted to advance, Archangel Michael stepped in. This was not symbolic. It was decisive. Michael is not dispatched casually. He is associated with defense, with warfare, with the protection of God's purposes. When his presence enters a situation, it signals that the matter has escalated beyond ordinary conflict. It means covenant is being defended. It means destiny is being guarded. It means something too significant to lose is under threat. In your case, the atmosphere shifted instantly. The accusations that had been building momentum were confronted. The narrative attempting to define your future was challenged. What seemed like a steady progression toward harm was suddenly interrupted by authority. When Michael stepped forward, he did not negotiate. He enforced. There was a command issued in the spirit realm. Not a suggestion. Not a debate. A command. The list that carried your name was brought into review under higher authority. And when heaven reviews a matter under covenant, outcomes change rapidly. The presence of Michael represents alignment with divine will. He does not act independently. He acts under God's direction. So if he intervened on your behalf, it means heaven had already determined that your preservation was necessary. Imagine the scene for a moment, not with fear, but with awe. A record bearing your name positioned among assignments of destruction. Forces prepared to execute what had been planned. And then, a higher authority enters. The atmosphere grows still. Movement pauses. Intentions freeze. And your name is called. Not as a target, but as a protected one. The authority behind Michael's intervention silenced opposition immediately. There are ranks and hierarchies in the unseen realm. When someone of higher rank speaks, those beneath must respond. The resistance that once seemed bold lost its confidence. The momentum that once seemed unstoppable lost its strength. A command was clear. Remove the name. This was not a temporary delay. It was an official cancellation. There are moments when God allows challenges to test growth. But there are also moments when he draws a line and says, no further. This was that moment for you. The assignment had reached its limit. You may have sensed something shift in your life without understanding why. Perhaps a heaviness lifted. Perhaps clarity returned unexpectedly. Perhaps a situation that felt like it was spiraling suddenly stabilized. Those were natural reflections of a spiritual enforcement. When Michael stepped in, the enforcement was immediate. The list was altered. Your name was struck through. The trajectory of destruction was dismantled. What had been planned lost authorization. And here is something powerful. You did not have to fight that battle consciously. You did not have to know the details. You did not have to craft the perfect defense. Heaven handled what you could not see. This does not mean you are passive in your spiritual life. It means you are protected within it. The intervention of Michael also sends a message to the opposition. This life is guarded. This destiny is monitored. This name is recognized in the courts of heaven. When destruction attempts to rise again, it will remember that it was already denied once. There is a residue of authority that lingers after such moments. A warning embedded in the spiritual atmosphere: do not overstep again. You may have underestimated your spiritual significance. You may have thought your life was ordinary, your calling modest, your influence small. But the level of intervention reveals otherwise. Michael does not respond to trivial matters. He responds to threats against purpose. And if your purpose was worth defending at that level, then your future holds weight. This moment of intervention marks a shift. Before, you were moving under quiet contention. Now, you are moving under reinforced protection. Before, the attack was testing boundaries. Now, boundaries have been established clearly. The enemy now knows something you must also realize: your name is not easily touched. The stepping in of Michael was not only about stopping destruction. It was about affirming identity. It was about declaring that your life belongs within a protected assignment. It was about reinforcing the covenant already spoken over you. You are not navigating this season alone. You are not walking uncovered. You are not advancing without backup. The intervention has already happened. And yet, there remains one revelation that will bring this entire narrative into personal focus. Because while Michael enforced the removal and covenant justified the protection, there was still a human voice involved. A single prayer that triggered the review in the first place. You are about to discover something that may bring gratitude to your eyes and humility to your heart. Now we arrive at the revelation your heart has been anticipating. The question that has quietly echoed through every part of this message: who prayed for you? Who carried the authority? Who felt the urgency? Who spoke your name at the exact moment it needed to be spoken? The answer may surprise you. For some of you, it was a mother, a woman who has carried you not only in her womb but in her prayers for years. You may not always see her faith. You may not always understand her persistence. But there have been nights when she whispered your name into the darkness, asking God to shield you from danger she could not see. For others, it was a grandmother, a quiet warrior whose knees have touched the floor more times than you can imagine. Someone who made a covenant long ago that her family would be preserved. Her voice may be softer now, but in the spirit realm, it carries weight. Her history with God gave her access to defend you. For some, it was a father who does not speak much about emotions but carries a deep sense of responsibility. His prayer may have been brief. It may have been simple. But it was sincere. And sincerity aligned with covenant moves heaven. And for others, it was not a parent at all. It may have been a mentor. Someone who saw potential in you before you saw it in yourself. Someone who sensed that your calling was fragile in a certain season and chose to cover you intentionally. They may never tell you how often they have mentioned your name in their private devotions. But heaven knows. There are even some listening right now for whom the answer is more unexpected. It was you. Yes, you. There was a moment, perhaps forgotten, when you cried out in exhaustion. A moment when you said, "God, help me. Protect me. I cannot do this alone." You may not have realized the urgency of that prayer. You may not have known how close you were to danger. But your cry was recorded. Your desperation became intercession for your own life. Sometimes the prayer that saves us is not eloquent, is raw, is imperfect, is whispered through tears, But when it is genuine, it becomes powerful. The revelation is not meant to elevate a person above measure. It is meant to remind you that you are surrounded by unseen faithfulness. Someone felt your burden when you were unaware. Someone responded to a divine nudge on your behalf. Someone allowed love to override distraction, and that love became your defense. This is why relationships matter. This is why spiritual connection matters. This is why humility matters. Because we are often sustained by prayers outside our own awareness. Think about the beauty of that. In a world that often feels disconnected, you were remembered. In moments when you felt ordinary, your name was spoken with urgency. In seasons when you questioned your worth, someone was declaring your value before God. And here is something even deeper. The one who prayed did not need full details. They did not need to know about the list of destruction. They did not need to understand the level of opposition. They simply obeyed the prompting to pray. Obedience is powerful. That is why you must never dismiss a sudden urge to pray for someone else. You never know what battle is unfolding behind their quiet exterior. You never know what assignment is being formed against them. One act of obedience can become someone's turning point. Now pause with me. If this revelation stirs gratitude in you, if you sense that someone has truly been covering you, respond in faith. Type prayer change my story in the comments. Blessing code 522 is now activated. As you type it, you are acknowledging the unseen hands that held you steady. But do not rush past this moment, because this revelation also carries responsibility. If someone's prayer could remove your name from destruction, then your prayers can do the same for someone else. Protection is not meant to stop with you. It is meant to flow through you. And what comes next will show you how this moment marks the beginning of a new chapter. You will be grateful you stayed to understand what this preservation now requires from you. When you realize that one prayer can rewrite destiny, you begin to understand the urgency of spreading messages like this. Every super thanks, every membership, every PayPal seed becomes a prayer extended to someone scrolling in silence, unaware of the battle around them. The Lord declares, "Give, and it shall be given unto you." And He speaks that promise directly over your obedience today. I feel called to help this word reach more souls before their critical moment arrives. Your giving is not a transaction. It is sowing into a harvest of preserved lives. As you release your seed, may rivers of provision flow back into your home. Do not delay when the Spirit prompts you. Step forward now through the links in the description or the PayPal QR code and activate your part in this mission. Now that you know your name was removed from a list of destruction, now that you understand a single prayer interrupted what could have altered your future, now that you see Archangel Michael stepped in to enforce your protection, the question becomes deeply personal. What does this mean for you now? It means you cannot go back to living casually. When someone survives something they never saw, awareness changes everything. You do not wake up the same. You do not speak the same. You do not treat your time the same. Preservation demands perspective. You were not just spared from harm. You were reaffirmed for assignment. There is a difference between survival and preservation. Survival implies you barely escaped. Preservation implies you were kept intentionally because you are needed. And what happened to you was preservation. Heaven did not intervene randomly. It intervened because your future still holds purpose. That means the season ahead of you is not ordinary. You may begin to notice increased clarity, a sharper sense of direction, opportunities aligning in ways that feel intentional. When destruction is canceled, destiny accelerates. When an assignment fails, purpose regains momentum. But with acceleration comes responsibility. You cannot return to habits that weaken you. You cannot casually entertain what almost cost you your peace. You cannot ignore your spiritual life as if nothing significant occurred. Something did occur. Something was stopped. And that means you are moving under renewed grace. There is also a warning woven into this blessing. Do not underestimate yourself again. Sometimes we walk through life minimizing who we are. We speak small about our calling. We delay obedience because we assume our impact is limited. But the intensity of the attack against you proves the opposite. Your life carries weight. Your decisions ripple outward. Your obedience unlocks doors beyond your awareness. What does this mean practically? It means guard your prayer life. The same power that saved you must now sustain you. If one prayer could remove your name from destruction, consistent prayer can build a fortress around your future. Do not treat prayer as emergency access only. Make it your daily alignment. It means guard your environment. Pay attention to what influences your thoughts. Notice what drains your peace. Discern conversations that subtly weaken your confidence. Preservation calls for discernment. It also means step forward boldly. Fear often lingers after news. Even when danger passes, hesitation tries to remain. But you were not preserved to live timidly. You were preserved to move forward with authority. The fact that destruction was denied means your next step is authorized. There are doors you hesitated to knock on. There are conversations you delayed. There are ideas you placed on hold. This is your confirmation. Move. Heaven did not defend your name so you could shrink back. You may also notice something else shifting, a deeper hunger for purpose. After awareness of protection, complacency becomes uncomfortable. You begin to desire meaning over routine, impact over distraction, alignment over convenience. This is not pressure. It is awakening. The list of destruction is no longer your narrative. But there is another list forming, the list of those who respond to preservation with obedience. What will your name represent now? Will it represent gratitude expressed through action? Will it represent courage in the face of new opportunity? Will it represent faithfulness when no one is watching? This moment is a crossroads. You can treat this revelation as emotional encouragement and move on unchained. Where you can treat it as divine confirmation and shift your posture entirely. You were saved by a single prayer. Let that reality echo within you. Someone believed enough to speak your name. Heaven cared enough to respond. Michael enforced enough to remove it. Covenant stood strong enough to defend it. Now you must live worthy of that covering. If this message confirms something deep inside you, if you sense that you have truly been preserved for a reason, then respond right now. Like this video as a declaration that you refuse to live small after being spared. Subscribe if you are ready to walk in greater awareness and spiritual authority. Comment "I was preserved for purpose" below as your personal agreement with this new season. And share this message with someone who may not yet realize that they survived something unseen. Your engagement is not just interaction. It is alignment. And hear this carefully, because it matters deeply. What comes next in your life will reveal why the battle was so intense. You will look back and understand why destruction tried so hard to interrupt you. You will see doors open that explain the resistance you faced. Hold on to this truth as you step forward. The cancellation behind you is proof of acceleration ahead. Your name was removed from a list of destruction, but it was not left unassigned. In the spirit realm, names are not erased into emptiness. They are transferred. When one record loses authority over you, another record begins to reflect your true alignment. And now, your name is written somewhere far more powerful. There is what Scripture calls a book of remembrance, a record before God of those who fear Him, who think upon His name, who align themselves with His purposes. While destruction attempted to claim you, remembrance defended you. And now that your name had been removed from harm, it had been reaffirmed among promise. You are not just spared, you are registered. This new list is not about survival. It is about assignment. It is about those marked for fulfillment rather than failure. Those positioned for acceleration rather than interruption. Those preserved not only to live, but to build, to influence, to restore. The shift is profound. When your name was on a list of destruction, the atmosphere around you carried tension. There was subtle resistance, unseen pressure, a sense that something was working against your momentum. But when your name was removed and re-established under divine remembrance, the spiritual climate changed. You may begin to feel alignment returning. Opportunities that once stalled may begin to move again. Conversations that felt blocked may open unexpectedly. Ideas that seemed impossible may suddenly feel attainable. This is not coincidence. This is what happens when you move from being targeted to being marked. Marked for favor. Marked for restoration. Marked for acceleration. The new list your name is on carries different assignments. Instead of discouragement, there is empowerment. Instead of derailment, there is direction. Instead of silence, there is voice. But understand this carefully. Being on this new list does not mean ease without effort. It means grace with responsibility. Remembrance comes with expectation. You are remembered because you are meant to respond. Preserved because you are meant to participate. Protected because you are meant to progress. There is also restoration attached to this shift. Anything that was delayed during the season of quiet opposition is being recalibrated. Time that felt lost will not be wasted. Lessons learned in pressure will become strength in promotion. Even the near loss will serve as perspective when blessing arrives. Nothing you endured was meaningless. When your name moved from destruction to remembrance, heaven did not simply cancel harm. It activated purpose. There are seasons in life where we feel invisible, overlooked, forgotten. We wonder if our faithfulness matters. We question whether our prayers are heard. But this moment confirms something powerful. You are seen. Not only seen in crisis, but seen in calling. The new list reflects identity. It affirms that you belong within divine intention, that your life is part of a larger narrative unfolding with precision. And here is something that may humble you deeply. Your name being on this new list also affects others. When you step into your assignment, someone else benefits. When you choose obedience, someone else gains courage. When you speak truth, someone else finds clarity. The preservation of your life was not isolated. It was interconnected. You were not just saved from something. You were saved for someone. There are conversations waiting for your voice. There are environments waiting for your integrity. Your spaces waiting for your faith. The new list your name is on includes restoration of influence. It includes restoration of confidence. It includes restoration of vision. And yet, with this elevation comes discernment. You cannot live as if nothing changed. You cannot return to patterns that weaken your clarity. When your name is marked for purpose, distractions become more dangerous. Compromise becomes more costly. Alignment becomes more critical. You have shifted spiritually. The atmosphere around you is different. Pay attention to the subtle confirmations in the coming days. The peace that replaces anxiety. The timing that feels precise. The favor that appears unforced. These are signs of transfer. Your name is no longer associated with interruption. It is associated with intention. Heaven has records, and your record reflects covenant, intercession, enforcement, and now remembrance. This is not about ego. It is about stewardship. You carry something worth protecting, and now, something worth releasing. A list of destruction tried to define your ending prematurely, but the book of remembrance defines your continuation, and the continuation holds weight. There is still one more dimension you must understand before stepping fully into this new season. Preservation and remembrance are powerful, but they require vigilance, because when purpose increases, so does the need for awareness. You have been preserved. Your name has been removed from a list of destruction. You have been reaffirmed under covenant and remembrance. But now comes a sober and necessary truth. Protection is not permission to become careless. When heaven intervenes, it does not eliminate responsibility. It increases it. There is a reason this message began with a warning. Not to frighten you, but to awaken you. Because while destruction was denied access, it does not mean opposition will never attempt to test boundaries again. The difference now is that you are aware, and awareness changes how you move. You cannot return to what almost destroyed you. Some of you know exactly what that means. There were environments draining your discernment, habits weakening your discipline, relationships subtly pulling you away from alignment, mindsets quietly feeding doubt. When your name was on that list, those things became entry points. Now that your name has been removed, those same entry points must be closed intentionally. Do not assume protection will compensate for repeated compromise. Grace save you. Wisdom must sustain you. There are patterns you must refuse to revisit. Conversations you must decline. Distractions you must limit. When you are preserved for purpose, your boundaries matter more than ever. This is not about living in fear. It is about living in discernment. Discernment means recognizing what strengthens your spirit and what drains it. It means noticing subtle shifts before they become major setbacks. It means paying attention to peace, and when it begins to leave a situation, asking why. You have entered a season where sensitivity is a gift. The enemy could not destroy you outright, so the next strategy would always be subtle erosion. If bold attacks fail, gradual distraction attempts to succeed. If visible pressure is resisted, invisible compromise tries to creep in. That is why you must guard your prayer life fiercely. Prayer is not just communication. It is calibration. It realigns your thoughts. It sharpens your discernment. It strengthens your awareness. The same force that removed your name from destruction must now become your daily defense. Do not let prayer become optional again. There is also a call to guard your identity. After near loss, some people shrink. They move cautiously, second-guessing their worth. Others overcorrect, becoming reckless in the name of boldness. Neither extreme is alignment. You were preserved not to become timid, and not to become careless, but to become intentional. Intentional about your time. Intentional about your words. Intentional about your obedience. There may also be relationships that shift in this new season. Not everyone who walked with you under quiet contention will walk with you under open favor. Some connections were comfortable when you were uncertain. They may grow uncomfortable when you become clear. Do not interpret that shift as loss. Interpret it as alignment. When your name moved to a new spiritual record, it affected more than just you. It affected your atmosphere. Your clarity will challenge confusion around you. Your discipline will challenge compromise near you. Your faith will challenge doubt in others. Be prepared for that. This is the warning. Do not be surprised when growth reveals tension. You are stepping into a season that requires maturity. You cannot speak casually about your calling anymore. You cannot delay obedience indefinitely. You cannot ignore subtle convictions that once felt optional. The preservation you experienced was not accidental. It was precise, and precision demands response. Let this truth settle deeply. You were almost interrupted permanently. Not to create fear, but to cultivate focus. When you understand how close something came, you value what remains more carefully. You treat your days differently. You steward your opportunities more intentionally. There will be moments ahead when temptation whispers, "It's not that serious." But you know now, it is serious. Your life carries weight. Your decisions ripple. Your obedience matters. And yet, this warning is not heavy. It is empowering. Because now you move forward informed. Now you advance with clarity. Now you build with awareness. You are not walking blindly anymore. You know covenant covers you. You know intercession defends you. You know Michael enforces boundaries. You know your name is remembered. So guard it. Guard your peace. Guard your discipline. Guard your focus. The enemy lost the authority to destroy you. Do not give him access through negligence. The next part of this message will bring everything full circle. Because preservation is not just about avoiding harm. It is about embracing purpose fully. And there is a final assurance waiting for you that will anchor your spirit as you step into what comes next. Warning. Archangel Michael says your name was just removed from a list of destruction. You were saved by a single prayer. Open this to see who prayed for you. Now you understand. This was never just a dramatic statement. It was a spiritual reality. Your name was written where it did not belong. Opposition tried to authorize an ending that heaven never approved. But because of covenant, because of it is and because of divine authority, your name was removed. And now we stand at the final assurance. You were saved for a reason. Not randomly. Not temporarily. Not emotionally. Strategically. Heaven does not intervene at that level without purpose attached. When Archangel Michael steps in, it is because something must continue. When a single prayer overrides destruction, it is because destiny still has chapters left to unfold. You are one of those chapters. Let that settle deeply in your spirit. There are people you have not met yet who are connected to your obedience. There are doors you have not walked through yet that will confirm why the attack was so intense. There are moments ahead that will make you look back and say, "That is why I was preserved." Sometimes we only understand the magnitude of protection after we see the magnitude of purpose. Your survival is not the headline. Your assignment is. You were not kept just to breathe. You were kept to build, to speak, to influence, to break cycles, to establish something that outlives you. A list of destruction tried to cut you off prematurely, but the book of remembrance secured your continuation. And continuation means commission. There will be days ahead when doubt tries to whisper again, when challenges attempt to question your confidence, when old fears try to resurface. In those moments, remember this truth clearly. Destruction had its chance, and it failed. That failure is proof of failure. You are not moving into your future fragile. You are moving into it fortified. Fortified by prayer. Fortified by covenant. Fortified by divine intervention. And here is the most powerful assurance of all. You are not alone going forward. The same God who defended you will guide you. The same authority that removed your name will sustain your path. The same covering that shielded you will surround your household. There is peace in that. This message was not delivered to create anxiety. It was delivered to awaken gratitude and activate purpose. You were closer to interruption than you realized, but you are now closer to breakthrough than you can see. Heaven does not waste rescues. If you were preserved, it is because your life is valuable in ways you may not yet fully comprehend. If you were defended, it is because your obedience matters in ways you have not yet witnessed. Walk forward with that assurance. Stand taller with that awareness. Pray deeper with that gratitude. And do not minimize your significance again. Because the enemy already tried and failed to erase you. Now, before we close, seal this moment with your declaration. Type "I was saved for a purpose" in the comments. Blessing code 903 is now activated. As you declare it, you are aligning your voice with heaven's verdict over your life. You were saved for a reason. You were removed from destruction intentionally. You were covered deliberately. And your story is still unfolding powerfully. May peace guard your mind. May clarity guide your steps. May courage fill your heart. And may the awareness of divine protection strengthen you in every season ahead. This is not the end of the message. It is the beginning of your next chapter. When you understand that lives are being preserved through messages like this, you realize this is more than content. It is a calling. The Lord declares, "Cast your bread upon the waters, and it will return to you." And He speaks that promise personally over your obedience today. When you sow through Super Thanks, membership, or PayPal, you are placing oil in the lamp so this light can reach someone before their critical moment. I feel compelled to invite you, partner in this mission of rescue and revelation. Your seed becomes a shield for another name on the edge of destruction. As you give, may heaven multiply provision over your household and establish your steps firmly. Do not delay this prophetic act. Go now to the links in the description or use the PayPal QR code and release your seed with faith.